FPL is surely going to be launched any day now, but whilst we wait, I wanted to take a quick look at what an early draft might look like given the fixtures and projected prices ahead of game week 1. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'm going to be taking an early look at what an FPL draft might look like ahead of game week 1, given that we're just a few days away now from the launch of FPL officially. This will include projected prices, but of course fixtures as well, which we already know. All thanks to FPL.team, which is a fantastic website and app, completely free to use, and it's one of my personal favorites. This is not a sponsored video whatsoever. I just really like the tool, so do go check it out. It's FPL.team. I'll leave a link in the description if you wanted to have a quick play around with a Game Week 1 draft before the launch of FPL, but also have a look ahead at Game Weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This app website, if you're not already aware, does all of that for you as well. So it's good to use throughout the season if you're a bit of a planner like me. In the meantime, though, for now, we've got 100 million to play with, and at the very least, we've got the fixtures. Again, all in FPL.team if you wanted to have a look at it laid out in this way. So I wanted to have a quick look, an early look at what a draft might look like with projected prices come game week 1. Now, obviously, things are going to change, and the FPL launch in just a few days is probably going to throw up a surprise or two. Maybe something in the game changes. So with that in mind, make sure you hit subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed today's video as well, by the way, and importantly, hit the notification bell because I'll be posting videos as soon as the game launches with any updates to what FPL is looking like this season, and of course, an updated draft as well. If you don't want to miss that, just hit subscribe and hit that notification bell and you won't miss out. It would be hugely helpful. In the meantime, let's take a look at how my draft might be set up given some projected prices, which to be fair, look pretty accurate based on what I would be expecting. Right then, so diving into the goalkeepers and the defense in combination. First up, Pickford in goal. I'd expect him to come in at 5 million. If it's 5.5, it might become a little bit more tricky, but the top scoring keeper in terms of FPL points across the last 2 seasons, Everton's defense looks pretty solid, and with David Moyes in situ during the pre-season, you'd expect it to maybe even get slightly better as well. They're recruiting well over the summer, and Pickford has been such a consistent goalkeeper across whole seasons rather than just little fits and spurts of game weeks. He can be held for the entire season if you need to, obviously double game weeks aside. And the fixtures for Everton aren't looking too bad to begin with either. 4 pretty decent fixtures. Leeds to start off with, a promoted club is always good to have on day 1, followed by Brighton, Wolves, Aston Villa, and then game week 5 going up against Liverpool in the Merseyside derby. That's the difficult one, but then followed by West Ham and Crystal Palace. It's not a bad set of 7 fixtures to start the season, but also crucially with keepers, you don't just hope for the best set of fixtures, you're also looking for the hauls, and more often than not you'll find the hauls come in matches where they wouldn't be expected to keep a clean sheet, but if they do, they not only get the clean sheet points, but they also get some save points and maybe even bonus as well, so you get the haul out of it. Pickford has been very good for those hauls over the last couple of seasons. And I think if he comes in at 5 million, it's going to be pretty difficult to find a keeper that is better value for money than him. Although some 4.5 millions, I'm sure will crop up. Maybe Kelleher now at Brentford could be an option. Speaking of Brentford, I've gone for Valdemarsson as my backup 4.0 keeper. That's just a placeholder at this point in time. You might expect a 4 million keeper who's actually starting to come to the fore during pre-season, but we're not really hoping for a keeper that's starting and is going to be in a good defense in the opening few game weeks at 4.0. It's just not very likely. So Valdemarsson is my backup. If one comes to the fore and looks like a starting goalkeeper, even if it's in a poor defense, it would probably still be worth going there. Or you could go for a combination of 2 4.5s, which is also absolutely fine. I've not really had too much luck with rotating goalkeepers because they tend to haul in the matches you wouldn't expect them to. So I like Pickford from the off as long as he comes in at 5 million. Into defense, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I'd like to start off, if possible, with 2 relatively premium, more expensive defenders, because I think that gives me a bit of flexibility, because I expect defenders to be a factor once again this season. There's Arsenal defence, you'd expect them to come in at 6.5 million. You've got Liverpool defence as well. Kirkes, Frimpong, Van Dijk, all potentially very good options. But Cucurella and Ait-Nouri are the two that I've picked for now. I like the opening fixtures for both Chelsea and Man City. If you look here, Chelsea have a great set of 6 to start the season. Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Brentford, Man United, Brighton. It's a good set. And then they've got the 2 promoted clubs in the stretch from game weeks 8 to 12. So if you've got Cucurella, he looks absolutely nailed for minutes, which will be a theme of today's video, by the way, as well. Most of the players that I'm talking about are going to be pretty high on the expected minutes. Cucurella looks very secure and has great attacking threat as well. We've seen him as a box crasher. He does get into the final third and he's used as that spare man in attacking phases. I really like him. I think he scored 4 goals last season. I'd expect him to get that, if not more, this season. So a big fan of him. One of the main risks I would say that I'm taking is on Ait-Nouri. If you look at the fixtures here, Wolves, Tottenham, Brighton, Man United, it's not a bad start. Then they've got Burnley and Everton in game week 6 to 8 as well. I don't think it's the best start I've ever seen on paper, but Man City are an elite defence. And Ait-Nouri was the defender with the most attacking returns last season anyway. And that was at Wolves, who historically don't get a lot of minutes in the box, who aren't an amazingly attacking team in comparison to City, at least. Obviously, they did a pretty decent job towards the end. But Ait-Nouri could be a bit of a game changer for Man City. Gvardiol was playing there last season, but he's not natural at left back and he's not natural in those final third areas and those phases of play. Ait-Nouri is a specialist at that, a specialist left back. And even in the Club World Cup, you could see the average positions he was getting into. It is a bit of a minutes risk in comparison to like a Cucurella or maybe an Arsenal centre-back. But I think the fixtures are good enough and the attacking upside is high enough that if he comes in at 6, maybe even 5.5 if we're lucky, it's going to be really tempting to go there. So he might change, but I'm tempted to take at least one gamble in my defense, especially considering the 4.5s that I've landed on for defenders 3, 4, and 5. Because if Ait-Nouri does miss out for whatever reason, most weeks I can rely on 2 of them. Wan-Bissaka is number 1. Great fixtures to start off the season for West Ham, starting off with Sunderland away from home. And Wan-Bissaka looked like a really decent FPL option towards the back end of last season, was getting great minutes. And if he comes in at 4.5, I think he's going to be one of the best value defenders in the game. He also got forward quite a lot more than we saw at Man United. And the underlying defensive data for West Ham was improving as well. So overall, big fan of Wan-Bissaka. I think if he comes in at 4.5, I'm going to want him. After that, the 2 defenders on my bench are, again, pretty reliable expected minutes players from decent defences. You've got Konza. Maybe he comes in at 5. If that's the case, I'm not going to own him, most likely. But at 4.5, after Newcastle is out of the way, just want to remind myself here because I'm still getting used to some of the fixtures. Game weeks 2 through to 8, it's looking like a good stretch. 2 promoted sides in there, some decent home fixtures. And look, you're not going to rely on Konza every single week, but it's nice to know you've got a defender with a decent chance of keeping a clean sheet in pretty much any of those game weeks. So if you need to lean on them, you can. So that's why I like Konza if he comes in at that price. And then Williams, Nottingham Forest has one of the better sets of fixtures to begin the season with. I think they're one of the only clubs who have a couple of promoted sides in the opening 6. That is correct, Burnley and Sunderland. In that time, they've also got West Ham and Brentford at home. Brentford losing a lot of players as well. And then Arsenal is the only tricky fixture in the first 6. So if you can bench Neco Williams that week, then I think you're pretty happy with him in every other game week if you wanted him. If he comes in at 4.5 million, again, very tempting. I've got a sneaky suspicion that this projection might be incorrect and he might come in at 5. But if he does come in at 4.5, that's going to be extremely tempting. And that rounds off the defense for me. All high on the expected minutes. Ait-Nouri's a slight risk. But I think considering the cover on the bench, I haven't gone with any 4.0 defenders. I think when FPL launches, it's likely that one of these defenders is a little bit more expensive than I'd like, and therefore I'd have to go for a 4.0 in combination. But for now, given the projections, I really like this balance. Okay, so moving into the midfield, and absolutely no surprises about the first option I've picked. Mo Salah is going to be in a lot of teams. As long as he's priced fairly competitively. But to be honest, there's not many prices that I'd imagine he'd come in at where I'm not going to want Mo Salah. And I think most people will probably go the same way. That's not to say you can't go against the crowd, though. If he comes in at something like 15 million, which I don't think is impossible, then there's an argument, and a pretty strong argument, to say, you know what? He's likely to drop off from his record-breaking season at least a little bit. And as long as I can find a captain most weeks that I'm happy with, maybe I can use that money better elsewhere, especially if Wirtz comes in as 9.5 million midfielder. Maybe you could go with him instead. However, for the time being, I've gone with Salah. He would be my game week 1 captain in this draft. Bournemouth at home, they've lost, I think, 3 of their... Well, I say 5 defenders. I'm including the goalkeeper in that. Kepa's gone. You've got Kirkez who's gone. You've also got Højsund who's gone. Maybe even Zabani goes as well, by the way. I think PSG were interested earlier in the window. But I would expect them to be a little bit worse for wear come game week 1. I think they'll come good eventually and they'll bed in the new signings. But game week 1, they might still be a little bit on the shaky side. And Salah is Mo Salah. He starts off the season hot. He's always a good FPL option, and he's always likely to get a return. So it's just a nice steady Eddie, high X minutes play to start off the season with. As long as he comes in at a price that isn't disgustingly high, he's going to be my game week 1 side and probably my captain as well. Cole Palmer's also snuck in there, and a lot of you watching this will probably think, oh, it's because of his Club World Cup final performance. And maybe that is a factor, in fairness. He performed phenomenally, but it's not something that you should just disregard either. It was a competitive game. It's one that Chelsea obviously massively wanted to win. And he put on an absolute clinic against one of the best sides in the world. He went through a pretty substantial dry run come, I think it was around game week 20 last season through to the end of the season. I think he scored 1 goal in that time. And a lot of managers probably thought he was a bit of a non-option for the back half of the season. But he still scored over 200 points. He still got a good number of goals, and the underlying attacking data was fantastic. He's still on penalties. He's still getting 90 minutes. And if they can just find a way to free him up a little bit more, if the confidence is flowing come game week 1, I think he's going to be a great option yet again. And I think, again, maybe because he tailed off a little bit towards the end of last season, he might come in a little bit cheaper, maybe at 10 million if we're lucky. And if that's the case, I think some managers won't go there because of last season, and that feels like an opportunity to me potentially. However, I can see that money being better spent elsewhere potentially. If Isak stays at Newcastle, then maybe you could shift the funds into the forward line instead. But I like Cole Palmer. He's got good minutes. He's got penalties, good underlying attacking data as well. So I'm tempted to include him in a game week 1 side, especially given the aforementioned Chelsea fixtures to start off the season. But Enzo could be an option. Neto could be an option. You've got new signings as well, like João Pedro. If he comes in as a midfielder, I think he'll come in as a forward, by the way. But if he does come in as a midfielder, he could be an option, who are all a little bit cheaper than Palmer. But Palmer is the gold standard in that Chelsea midfield. And if I can get there, I would want him. And it's also nice to have that bit of flexibility that if you've got 2 premium-ish midfielders, you can get across to pretty much any other midfielder in the game with 1 move as well. So it's nice and flexible in the midfield, a little bit tighter in the forward line, but Palmer seems like a good option. Rounding off the midfield, Bowen, Ndiaye and Souček on the bench. I'll go into Souček in just a moment's time, but Bowen and Ndiaye, great on the expected minutes yet again. Again, I'm talking about this theme of high expected minutes. I'm trying not to take too many risks with minutes because that's bit me quite a few times in the past, especially last season, and Nkunku being a great example of that, where pre-season looked really good, but we weren't certain on the minutes, and then all of a sudden he's out of the side after a couple of game weeks. Can't afford that in FPL. I need to get off to a good start. Bowen's a 90-minute man, and Ndiaye is a 90-minute man. Both of them should be on penalties as well, and good underlying data for both of them as well, and good fixtures too. So overall, yeah, maybe I'm going a little bit heavy on West Ham and Everton here, but I like the fixtures. I like the players in isolation, and their underlying attacking data is good. So I think that rounds off my midfield 4 pretty nicely. On my bench, Souček comes in the projections as a 5 million option. There aren't tons of options that I love the look of at 4.5 million. So Souček, if I do have 500,000 spare, having him as a player with at least some attacking threat, and obviously he's a threat from set pieces, great in the air, I don't mind him at all as someone that maybe I lean on once in every while if I've got an injury, but I'm realistically not expecting to play him all that often. This midfield four would be fairly consistent given the fixtures are strong for all of them and they're such reliable 90-minute men on penalties. I'm not realistically looking at rotation here too much, but I've got options in my defense, my two defenders on the bench and Souček, that if there is an injury, I've got cover. There's a lot of depth in this side. So if I can afford it, I'm pretty happy with it. But as mentioned before, this is projections only. So something's going to happen that means that I'll probably need that 4.5 million midfielder. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. So finally, moving into my forward line. And I've not got tons of money to play with because I've spent a fair bit of it in my defense and in midfield. So no room for a premium forward. And that is probably the weakness in this draft. It means that getting to someone like an Isak, if he stays at Newcastle, or of course, if he goes to Liverpool, although he probably wouldn't have penalties in that instance, so maybe he's not quite as good, possibly balanced out by Liverpool's attacking threat, but we can discuss that if it actually goes through as a transfer. At the moment, speculation only. But no easy route to Isak because he'll come in at more expensive than any of these forwards, or of course Erling Haaland. So that maybe leaves me in a bit of a pickle after a few game weeks if one of those two options ends up being an obvious FPL gem that we need to have in our sides. It means that I'd have to spend a couple of transfers to get rid of Salah, Palmer, maybe even find little bits of money elsewhere in my side. But in isolation, I do really like the three forwards here. I think there's good balance there. They're all good on expected minutes, and you'd expect at least one of them, maybe two of them, to have penalties as well. So Watkins coming in the projections at 8.5 million, I think that's probably fair. Maybe 9 million if we're unlucky. Historically great data. Even last season when he wasn't really an option for too long, he still put up good numbers. And when he was starting, he was a fantastic FPL option with great underlying attacking data. The problem last season was he had competition like John Duran and then Marcus Rashford. So he was never quite as nailed as you'd want him to be to become a good FPL option at the price he was put into the game at. This season, as it stands anyway, he doesn't have that competition. So he should be a more nailed attacking option in that Villa side. And when he's nailed, he's a great FPL option because the data's good. If you add in the expected minutes as well, we know that he's an explosive option who can pop off in any game week. I think 2 seasons ago, he was an absolute diamond. So I think if he comes in at 8.5 million, he'll be very tempting to go for. Moving across to Dominic Solanke, I think he'll be in a lot of drafts, should be on penalties for Spurs. Spurs coming in with Thomas Frank this season, a change of system perhaps. And Thomas Frank made a huge emphasis at Brentford on finding high XG chances for their centre forward. Wissa was brilliant at getting high XG chances, and Mbeumo as well, but particularly Wissa in that centre forward role got so many high XG chances and put them away with ease. Solanke is now going to be playing that position, you'd think, for Tottenham. And if Frank is able to embed a system that's in any way similar, Solanke should benefit from that. Add in the penalties. He's got good underlying data and good expected minutes. I think if he comes in under 8 million, he's going to be a fantastic option as well. And then you've got Evan Nilsson too, who unfortunately got injured for a little while last season. But I think if he hadn't got that injury, a lot of people would be talking about him as one of the budget picks of last season. His underlying data was great. Bournemouth were a great attacking side as well last season, and he grew into that role as Bournemouth centre forward, obviously vacated by Dominic Solanke himself last season, really well towards the back end of the season. With another pre-season, bedded into that system even more. I think he looks like a cut above in terms of forwards at this price point. If he comes in at 6.5 million, I think it's almost too good to be true. He might get penalties at some point if we're lucky. Cliver probably continues to take them. But I think at that price point, he looks like a player that is going to be very interesting, almost regardless of fixtures. And to be honest, I haven't really looked at fixtures for Bournemouth too much, but after Liverpool, and okay, granted, Liverpool's not a great opening day fixture for Evan Nilsson. After that, you're looking all the way through to game week 10 before they've got another really difficult fixture where they might not be expected to score at all. And he does tick along really nicely. It's about half a goal a game in terms of the underlying expected data. So I'm really happy with Evan Nilsson as an option. Across the front three, I've got good expected minutes, penalties, maybe one or two forwards, and good underlying data for all three. Little bit inflexible getting to Erling Haaland or Isak or maybe Gyökeres at Arsenal if he signs, but I'm pretty happy as a 15 who all get good minutes, barring the goalkeeper, penalties for a lot of them, and good underlying data for a lot of them as well, with some decent fixtures chucked in there too. 0.0 million in the bank, so if any of these players come in more expensive, then I'm in trouble, but I'm pretty happy with this draft, given we're working on projections and fixtures only. Do let me know what you think of it in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like, hit subscribe, and make sure you go check out FPL.team to make your own draft. And feel free to tag me on social media. All of the links, all of the handles are above with your Game Week 1 draft, with the projected prices as well. And I'll give it a little rating if I get the chance to. In the meantime, I'll see you next time. Only a few days now before FPL launches. Really excited to get going.